Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So this morning, well, first of all, welcome everybody to the class this morning. It's from Untitled Chapter. Adi-Lila, chapter number 2 and text number 53. Okay. So I'll start the Jairad Madhavat and then we'll just go from there. Excuse me. Let me grab my cartons and then we'll just get started if I find them. Sorry. Here we go. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivadadari Yashodanandana Vajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giradhari Yashodanandana Vajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Sharad Bihari Radha Sharad Bihari Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Shri Radhe Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivajikacharya Stotra Satyasi Srimada's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivajikacharya Astottara Satya Shishi Maharaj Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai, Ananti Koti Vaishnavini ki jai, Namacharya Brahmacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, ISKCON founder Charya Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivachari Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Mathura Dham ki jai, Navadvip Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Jagannath Swami ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Jamuna Mai ki jai, Tulasi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Nitai Gaura Pramanandi, Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glory to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Swami Nityanami. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Tatmani. Sri Gaur Karuna Shakti Bhakti Nityanami. Narayana Namaskritta Narunchaivam Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nasta Prayesva Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sivaya Bhakti Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna. So the text again, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi-Lila, chapter 2, text 53. Okay. Virat Hiranya Garbhascha Karanam Chetubhadaya Ishaya Yatvihinam Turyam Tat Pachakshate. Oh, the tune that you guys like a lot. Vira Hiranya Garbhascha Karanam Chetupadaya Ishasyam Yatvihinam Turyam Tat Prakakshate. Vira Hiranya Garbhascha Karanam Chetubhadaya Ishasya Yatvihinam Turyam Tat Prakakshate. You can chant if you want to.
वीराधिरण्यगर्भश्च कारणं चेत्युपाध्यः ईशस्य यत्रिभिर्हिनं तुर्यं तत्प्रचाक्षते.
Welcome back, Mother Gita. Hare Krishna. Anyone else want to chant?
Viradhiranyagarbhascha karanam cheti upadaya isaya tribirhinam tiryam tat prachakshate.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Okay. Word for word. Virat, the Virat manifestation. Hiranyagarbha, the Hiranyagarbha manifestation. Cha and Karanam, the Karana manifestation. Cha and Iti, thus. Upadhaya, particular designations. Ishasya, of the Lord. Yat, that which. Trivi, these three. Hinam, without. Turiyam, the fourth. Tat, that. Prachakshate is considered. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In the material world, the Lord is designated as Virat, Hiranyagarbha, and Karana. But beyond these three designations, the Lord is ultimately in the fourth dimension. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Virat, the phenomenal manifestation of the Supreme Whole. Hiranyagarbha, the numinous soul of everything. And Karana, the cause or causal nature, are all but designations of the Purushas, who are responsible for material creation. The transcendental position surpasses these designations and is therefore called the position of the fourth dimension. This is a quotation from Sridhar Swami's commentary on the 11th canto, 15th chapter, verse 16 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Gyanati Mirandasya Gyana Gyana Shalakaya Chakshu Om Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shcha Shri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvitam Sabadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchaka Patarubhescha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadvaita Gadadhara Shiva Shari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirveshesha Sunyavari Paschathyadi Shaptarine. Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gaurachise Namaha. Nanda-Lila Maya Vigrahaya Himabhya Divecha Vishindaraya Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya Shri Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Shri Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Shri Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. So the text translation again, this is Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi-Lila, chapter 2, text 53. In the material world, the Lord is designated as Virat, Hiranyagarbha, and Karana. But beyond these three designations, the Lord is ultimately in the fourth dimension. And just as a side issue, I'm actually filling in for Donacharya Prabhu, who can't make it this morning. There's a time conflict with him in Philadelphia. Hare Krishna. So, it is explained here, in the material world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is designated as Virat, Hiranyagarbha, and Karana. But beyond these three designations, the Lord is ultimately in the fourth dimension. So we, by permission from Guru and Gauranga, I hope to be used to talk about these three and how it relates to our lives. In the material world, first thing, in the material world, we are in the material world. So it's good to know something about the material world with the view to getting out of the material world altogether, because this is not our home. But the material world, the Lord is designated as Virat, Hiranyagarbha, and Karana. And Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that Virat is a phenomenal manifestation of the Supreme Whole. Hiranyagarbha, the luminous soul of everything, and Karna, the cause of causal nature. He says that these three are designations of the Purusha. Purusha is male, Prakriti is female. Material nature, well, us included, because now we put ourselves in material nature. We don't originally belong to material nature. Our home is in the spiritual world, but due to envy of Krishna, we forced Krishna's hand with all the warnings that were given that we wanted to be Lord of everything ourselves. We are now here, but the Lord's mercy is never stopped anywhere. So the Lord follows us. The individual soul comes to the material world. The Lord follows us, the super soul. Also the material world. Comes to the material world. But he is not material. He's in the fourth dimension. That's described as not material. Not connected with the material world. The Lord's activities are all spiritual, and one who understands that does not come to the material world anymore. That's said in Bhagavad Gita. Janma karma chame divyam. One who knows my birth, janma, my activities, karma, that me divyam, divine. So that's the understanding we have to have. But in the material world, to come back to this, Virat is the phenomenal manifestation of the Supreme Whole. And we say Virat, usually we add the word Rupa to it. Rupa means form. So Virat Rupa, we're talking about the universal form of the body of the Lord, the universal form that contains all of the planets, all of the universes. And it's set up quite interestingly, and it's described also in the Srimad Bhagavatam by Srila Prabhupada in this purport. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, and text 30. 1, 3, 30. So a section of the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying that the Virat Rupa is conceived for those who are just neophyte worshippers. For them, material Virat Rupa is presented. So, Srila Prabhupada is definitely commenting on this particular text, the Virat form, the universal form, the universes, the material universes. And he says that the Virat Rupa, in the Virat Rupa, there are manifestations of the different planets, and they have been conceived at being in different positions. So like his legs and hands and chest, and the demigods, Lord Brahma, in his chest area, and it goes on, all the demigods are presented there. And it looks quite impressive. But remember, we talked about not too long ago, a few minutes back, that we don't belong to this material world. We are spiritual beings encaged in these material bodies because we opted to leave the spiritual world by our actions, contrary to Krishna's wishes. We wound up here. So that's why Srila Prabhupada says, actually, all such descriptions of the Virat Rupa are for neophytes. People who want to be in awe of the Lord. Yes, we are in the material world, and they're connected more to the material world. Therefore, when the Lord shows this universal form, it's very impressive to them. Why aren't devotees so connected with the Virat Rupa, the universal form? Because we are being guided to relate on a personal level with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You cannot have pastimes as a devotee with the universal form. You cannot. When the Lord shows himself in a two-handed form, then it is possible to relate to the Lord in the sweet mellow of love. That cannot be obtained. You can be in awe looking at the universal form of the Lord, seeing how much power is there. And he also says that he is time. Krishna says he's time. And things are going on, as you know, in the universal, in the universe, in the material universes. There's creation, there's maintenance, and then there's destruction. So on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when Krishna revealed his universal form to Arjuna, and the demigods also saw it, they saw the power and the destruction going on. Those in the battlefield, Arjuna literally saw the immediate future. He saw that all the living entities, including the soldiers in the battlefield, were just being helplessly sucked into Krishna's mouths, and they were being devoured. Life does end in the material world. It's a cycle: creation, maintenance, and destruction. So the Virat Rupa is conceived for those who are neophyte worshippers, who believe in God but want to see something or hear something about the Supreme Personality of God, Godhead. That's phenomenal. So that can impress those who are in the material world and want to see something great from God connected to the material world. The Virat Rupa, or the universal form, is quite impressive to them. The Lord is ultimately very personal. And in the two-handed form, Arjuna was with him as a friend. That is definitely an intimate, and Krishna, when he becomes a friend, Prabhupada says he's a friend forever. Sometimes in the material world, friendships go on, they get intensified, and something happens, and then the thoughts are different. But I've seen that in different families, my own family has occurred. There are some relatives that you get close to them, and then something happens, there's disagreement, and after a while, they're not close anymore. The friendship goes down a little bit. And sometimes it gets picked up again, and sometimes it doesn't. But the relationship of Krishna is eternal. And for him, the relationship with him gets sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. It doesn't go down, it actually gets better and better. So definitely compared to the Virat Rupa, devotees are much, much, much better off obeying the spiritual master's instruction and relating to Krishna by serving him in love and chanting the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, then there's in this text, the next is the Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha. The Hiranyagarbha is another name for Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So the Lord is first bringing the material universes into existence. That is Mahavishnu. These are the Purusha forms we're describing now. The Mahavishnu, whose pores are the ones the universes come out of. Then he expands to this Hiranyagarbha. And Hiranyagarbha is Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, the Vishnu form that is responsible, penetrating the universes, and responsible through Lord Brahma, in which Lord Brahma is born from the navel of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And he's also taught by Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Hiranyagarbha, on how to bring the different varieties of each universe. So the universes first come from the pores of Mahavishnu or Karanadakshaya Vishnu. And then he expands into Hiranyagarbha or Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So from Mahavishnu to Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is there's one Garbhodakshaya Vishnu per universe. Creating through Lord Brahma, teaching Lord Brahma to create the varieties in this universe. And so you see the planets and the different weather and so on, and then living entities, demigods who are responsible for different aspects, all the way down to the insignificant ant or even the germ. All of those through Hiranyagarbha. So, Srila Prabhupada says, the Lord as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu or Hiranyagarbha, Super Soul, enters into each and every universe and causes it to be animated by begetting the living entities within the womb of material nature, as is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text 3. So after each annihilation of the material creation, all the living entities, they get merged within the body of the Lord. After Lord Brahma's night, after Lord Brahma's day, the nighttime comes and there is annihilation for each universe, with the exception of 4 heavenly planets, including Brahmaloka. Satyaloka, Janaloka, Mahaloka, and then Tapaloka. Satyaloka is the same as Brahmaloka. So Brahma's own abode is not annihilated when he goes to sleep. But the living entities below these 4, all the way down to the hellish planets, everything is annihilated, and the living entities for that night time, which lasts 4,320,000,000 years, they are put into the body of Hiranyagarbha, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. When Lord Brahma lives his full life, 311 trillion years and 40 billion years, and he dies, then the whole universe is annihilated and put in the body back of Mahavishnu, Karanodakshaya Vishnu. But the daily sleeping and waking up, that night time, which is 4,300,000,000 years, 320 million, 4,320,000,000 years, that's 12 hours of Lord Brahma's time. And that time is spent. He's sleeping, he's in Brahmaloka, three other heavenly planets, the sages move into those. So they're there, they don't want to leave the bodies. The highly elevated, the highly learned sages, they have mantras, they chant, they will go into these different planets. And then the rest of the people in different, or entities in different planets, they go into the body of Hiranyagarbha. So after each annihilation of the material creation, Srila Prabhupada says, all the living entities merge within the body of Hiranyagarbha, the Lord, and after creation, they are again impregnated. They come out to the material energy to continue their desires. And whatever the desires are, there are 8,400,000 types of bodies they can go into based on their wishes. But still, they go through the suffering nature here in the material world. So it's described that the living entities, as I said, they are stationed within the womb of material nature. And it's confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14.3. So in Bhagavad Gita 14.3, the translation, the total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth. And that is that Brahman that Krishna says, I impregnate, making possible the birth of all living beings, O son of Bharata, referring to Arjuna. So the total material substance called Brahman, and I know some of you may be going to, you mentioned Brahman, and we hear Brahman in reference to spiritual. But why is it being said here? Krishna is saying the total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth. Srila Prabhupada explains it in chapter 14, text 3 of Bhagavad Gita in the purport section. He says, this is the explanation of the world. Everything that takes place is due to the combination of the field of activities and a knower of the field of activities, the body and the spirit soul, material and spiritual. So this combination of the material nature and the living entity is made possible by the Supreme God himself. When he impregnates, the souls come and they take these physical bodies, and then they are in the material world acting out whatever the enjoyment, material enjoyment or suffering they have to go through. Now, the Mahatattva is the total cause of the cosmic manifestation. Sometimes you hear Mahatattva, so what does that mean? The Mahatattva is the beginning that comes before the universes. And the universes come out of the pores of Kanadaksha Vishnu or Mahavishnu. So the Mahatattva is the total manifested material nature. And when the Lord enters that in Kanadaksha Vishnu, then he causes the universes to be formed and the universes come out of the pores. So you can imagine a big material situation, or structure if you like, but it's unmanifested. And the Lord causes the universes to come out of the Mahatattva. Also, of course, there's a connection, the material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, they're all in there, the sum total, the Mahatattva. So the Mahatattva is the total cause of the cosmic manifestation, the universe. And that total substance of material force, in which there are three modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, sometimes it's called Brahman. So that's not to be confused with Brahman in terms of spiritual. Mahatattva sometimes also called Brahman. So Sipapa describes that the Supreme Personality of Godhead penetrates that Brahman, the total substance, and the universes, innumerable universes become possible. So the reason it's called Brahman here is that it's also described in the Mundaka Upanishad, 119, same. Tasmat etat Brahma nama rupam anan cha jayati. And we hear Tasmat etat Brahma nama rupam anam cha jayati. The Supreme Person impregnates that Brahman with the seeds of living entities. The seeds of living entities. Remember, we're part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when we say seed, the spiritual seed goes into the Mahatattva, which is sometimes called Brahman. So not to confuse that with Brahman being spiritual, but sometimes the total material energy is also given the name Brahman, Mahatattva. So that's Hiranyagarbha. Now, Karana. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, text 21, Karya Karana Kartritve Hetu Prakriti Uchate Purusha Sukha Dukhanam Bhokritve Hetu Uchate. The translation, this is Bhagavad Gita 13, text 21, chapter 13, text 21. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. And Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport that the different manifestations of the body and senses among living entities are due to the material nature. The material nature has 8,400,000 species of life that we talked about. And these varieties are creations from the material nature. Why are there that many? Well, they come from the sensual pleasures of the living entity who desires to live in a particular body, or that particular body, this one or that one, depending on what they want to enjoy in the material world. Or they have imagination or wishes to be that way. And then Srila Prabhupada says, all right, Krishna would allow that physical body to be entered into by that particular soul. So they get born like that. Mm? So we have to be careful what we think about, especially at the time of death. At the time of death, all kinds of thoughts come, but the one that's predominant in our lives are the ones that's going to most likely dominate our minds at the time of death. And that will put us into a different species of this 8,400,000 type species. Therefore, a devotee that knows that the material world is not home and desires to go back, strong desire to go back to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, must remember Krishna at the time of death. And since what we think about the most, what we meditate on most in our lives are what we're going to conceive of or think about at the time of death, it makes more sense to think about Krishna all the time, so that at the time of death, Krishna is the one whose image or whose pastimes or whose form comes to mind. At that time, we got to leave. And Krishna says, what we're thinking of, we're going to attain without a doubt. So to go to Krishna Loka, one has to think about Krishna. The easiest way to think about Krishna, combined with wanting to serve Krishna, is in fact the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So it stands to reason that we should think of the Lord by chanting his holy name. And that helps us to develop love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because the meaning of the mantra is, dear Radha, dear Krishna, please engage us in devotional service to you. So, our wanting different sensual pleasures of the body, particular type of body, Krishna arranges to be put in, for us to be put in that type of body. So when the living entity is put in different bodies, it enjoys different kinds of happiness and distress. In karma, our activities also play out. What we've done in previous lives, we would in fact go through some sort of happiness or some sort of suffering at the material level for that. Now, one thing that happens is old age will definitely come. The person doesn't die young, old age will come. And old age has its challenges. The body is breaking down. Those of you who may have automobiles, when it gets very old, the automobile parts are breaking down, you find yourself having to go through repairs. New cars don't go through so much repairs. Maintenance is there, but actual repairs are replacing things. The human body is like that too. The other bodies are also like that. And so that becomes a very challenging situation, sometimes very painful. Sometimes old people have to learn to live with pain. And even if you're not old, you just look at an older person, they walk slower. Sometimes their spine is bent, and they're not walking straight. And sometimes they use a walking stick and all of those. So that's suffering due to old age that you can't put aside. You cannot avoid. Once you get up there to that age, that's going to happen. So obviously it makes more sense not to be occupying these physical bodies anymore. At the earliest opportunity, get out of the physical body and don't take another one, which is what Krishna consciousness is about. We pray to the Lord, we serve the Lord, and we serve in this order. Serve the Lord's devotees. The Lord is Atmaram, the Lord is self-satisfied. You serve the Lord's devotees first. You develop Krishna Prema, or love of Godhead. It comes from serving the Lord's devotees first. You have to want to serve them. You have to look for opportunities to serve at the temple. You have to look for opportunities to serve individual devotees. You have to look for opportunities to serve them when you talk to them, when you advise, if they need your advice. In conversations, listen for things that are needed. The person may talk about them, not expecting you to do anything, but you make a mental note of it, and arrange to get some help from that particular person. Because love is shown by how we care, and our care comes from action. when we act to serve each other, then the Lord is pleased with us. We are all parts and parcels of the Lord. And when we relate wonderfully, serving each other, then we will develop friendship with each other. And this is how love starts. So that's our practice first. And then our spiritual master will be very happy with us. Sometimes people think, well, I'm serving here, I'm doing this, my spiritual master is somewhere else. Don't make that mistake. Physical is there, but the Lord's representative is the Guru. So if things are going well, the Guru would know. Those people who relate to or come across or come by Guru later on, sometimes you can watch the Guru's mood and you know it's pretty consistent with how devotional we ourselves are. Sometimes if we are challenged and we're not taking the process seriously and we see our Guru, or even come in front of the deities, you see, if you watch intently, you see that the relation back to us is not so great. Sometimes the devotee that is, and some people experience it, some people may have not. But the devotee that is serving very nicely comes in front of the deity and they watch the deity intently. They may see, first, of course, they watch the feet and then go up to the face. And the deity may have a slight smile in the face, or sometimes a very broad smile. What is that? Don't talk about this very much. But it all depends on where our heart is. Could you serve, the spiritual master will be pleased. Krishna always informs the spiritual master what's going on with the devotee. So when the devotee serves other devotees nicely, then the relationship between the devotee and the spiritual master also gets improved to the point where now the devotee really wants to serve a spiritual master. And it's like realize everything the spiritual master says is their life and soul, wanting to do it, just like Srila Prabhupada. Great example. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj says, preach Krishna consciousness in the West. He struggled. All kinds of situations happened that were challenging, but he never let up. He did it, and the Lord opened up, eventually, the international society, which he termed ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, by obeying Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. So by serving Guru like that, then we develop love for Krishna. Then Krishna reveals the sweetness of Krishna consciousness to us. And then our hearts become light. Our heart becomes very happy because the soul is in the heart area. Our mind is steady and we will not be shaken away from Krishna consciousness by any means. So we have the opportunity to go back to Godhead and take these things seriously. So, in the material world, Krishna is designated as Virat, Hiranyagarbha, and Karana. But beyond these three, Krishna is in the fourth dimension. And that fourth dimension is called Turiya, the fourth dimension. So, as is said in the purport here, this is a quotation from Sridhar Swami's commentary on the 11th canto, 15th chapter, verse 16 of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is important for devotees to meditate on the Lord as spirit, beyond the material, present as described in the fourth dimension. Srimad Bhagavatam, canto 11, chapter 15, text 16 is Narayane Turiyake Bhagavat Chapta Saptite Mano Mai Adadat Yogi Mat Dharma Vasitam Iyat. Translation: the yogi who places the mind in my form of Narayan, known as the fourth factor, full of opulences, becomes endowed with my nature and thus obtains the mystic perfection called Vashita. The yogi who meditates on Krishna as the fourth dimension, as the spiritual, so they become endowed with the nature of Krishna himself. And they become, who's Krishna? Spiritual. So then they become freed from the modes of nature. And that's called Vasita. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, Bhagavad Gita 7:13 says that deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world doesn't know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. Tribi guna mai bhavai, ebi sabam idam jagat, mohita nabijanate, mam ebya param avyayam. The Lord is above the modes and inexhaustible. Srila Prabhupada says, the Lord is called Turiya, the fourth factor beyond the three modes of material nature. And this whole same Turiya is also used to describe ordinary phases of nature by Viragava Acharya. Turiya is used to describe the three ordinary phases of consciousness. That is when we are awake, or what's called the beta state, or the dream state, or when we're sleeping without any dreams. But these are all connected with material nature. And the Lord is above all of that. So our nature is spiritual. And in conclusion, Srila Prabhupada says, one can obtain the mystic opulence, Vasita, of freedom from the modes of nature by meditating upon the Lord as the Supreme Spirit, the fourth factor beyond the modes. And everything depends upon the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything depends on the favor of the Lord. So if we meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, chant his holy name, relate to devotees, stay away from sinning, and hear constantly, we will develop the love of the Lord and be meditating in the fourth dimension away from the three modes of material nature. Of course, in the physical body, we're supposed to act in goodness, so that's there, tolerance and and being overall a nice person, that's there. We pull people into the society that way by their making noticing us the way we are and how we relate to them. Very important. As a matter of fact, there was a function not too long ago, about 2 Saturdays back, and there were some non-devotees who also attended, and I happened to be sitting next to them, and many of our friends there were devotees, and this person made a remark about Hare Krishna, which he says, I just get a feeling from them that they are so nice. They are very, very good people. They seem to be quite genuine in everything that they do. And I haven't seen that many people in one place with this type of behavior. It is very, very important for us to come across, even with the mode of goodness qualities, to non-devotees, because that's how you get pulled into this particular path. So we have to just take that into consideration, chant, act in the mode of goodness, chant the holy name, because that is transcendence. Serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead by serving the devotees and serving Guru, and then the Archa-Vigraha, the deity of the Lord. And in that way, we will be meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the fourth dimension, just like it's mentioned here, Turiya. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I'll just read the text again. In the material world, the Lord is designated as Virat, Hiranyagarbha, and Karana. But beyond these three designations, the Lord is ultimately in Turiya, the fourth dimension, the spiritual totally. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So if you have any comments or questions, you may bring those up at this time. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, I don't hear any comments or questions. And so I would like to thank all of you for coming to the class. And this afternoon at 6 o'clock, we have our Bhagavad Gita circle. We'll be reading, I think we finished chapter 11, we're going to chapter 12 today at 6 o'clock. So if you have time or if you make time to listen to Bhagavad Gita on Zoom. Vanchakalpatarubhascha kripa sindhave eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Jai.